Nice. And you joined Dream Theater in 1999, I think it was January, and the band releases Metropolis Pt.2, which is one of the best albums, not of the band, but of prog metal. Uh, what are your memories of the songwriting process, and which are your memories of the recording and all of the stuff?
Yeah. When I went into the studio to start working with them, I had about 60 ideas that I had recorded. I just was so inspired with the idea that, oh my God, here we go, just join Dream Theater, it's gonna be amazing, and all this stuff. So recorded all this stuff, and I got into the studio with all these ideas, and I said to Mike Portnoy, I said, Mike, man, I got all these ideas, I got all this stuff. He says, oh, he was like, no, 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 no. He says, we write stuff together in the studio. He was like a little bit, like
Wow.
threatened that I was coming in with all these ideas, like, oh shit, because we're used to he wanted to be part of it, like part of all the ideas, and he didn't, whatever. So, but then he's like, okay, let's hear him, because he wanted to hear him anyway. How could he say no? He wanted to hear what I came up with. So, I was just really excited and came up with a whole lot of shit. At the same time, they had a lot of music that they had started to do because they had started to think about a follow-up to like Metropolis or whatever. So, we used a bunch of the ideas that I had, and we used a bunch of the stuff that they had, already been thinking about. And it was a very inspired session. Dream Theater is a group of musicians that has no shortage of musical ideas. That's never the problem. It's all about putting them together. So, in the architecture of all the ideas.
Yeah.
So one of the funny things that when I think back is that in those days, I didn't have a really strong idea about or developed idea about how to orchestrate, like how to play the keyboards within this sonic picture. Think about Dream Theater. I mean, the guitar sound is as big as this house. It's like fucking huge. It's like a humongous wall of sound. So when you play keyboards, you have to think about, okay, what can you add to this to make it cooler, to add some new dimension to the sound, to, heaviness or whatever. What can you do as a keyboard player to, to help this music along? So I was just going for this idea. I was used to doing a lot of orchestration on my own, a lot of parts, a lot of things. So I, really over orchestrated my parts for that album. I had a lot of stuff.
Wow.
I would put down all kinds of things for all the sections because that's who I was. That's what I was, doing. So I remember going through and maybe Mike Portnoy or somebody saying, you know what, this is all really cool, but that's like too much stuff. Just wanted like an organ part or a lead part or a unison. They didn't, the group didn't need to have all this stuff. I kind of thought it was cool, but when I look back at it these days, I'm like, yeah, I totally get that. Like everything's got to have its like space. It's part of what you learn in a group, when you're orchestrating and figuring out arrangements. So, yeah, so that's a lot of what was going on there. I was working much too hard, coming up with all kinds of stuff. I think somewhere there exists, somebody has access to those tracks, and there exists some like things people could hear with those extra tracks from Scenes from a Memory. I couldn't say.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. I probably have a tape or something like that in my studio somewhere from all that stuff. But yeah, but a lot of inspiration flowing around. It was really fun.